All right, everybody, you have just tuned into the Steel City Blitz Steelers podcast presented by Deck Roofing Incorporated of South Florida. And it's going to be a broken record, everyone. The Pittsburgh Steelers have won again. They are 11-0, and they defeated the Baltimore Ravens for the second time this season, 19-14, in what can only be described as the longest Thanksgiving game ever played. Because it took like 6 days to play it. We kind of rehashed all the COVID stuff last week prior to the game when we thought it was going to be on Thanksgiving. So we're not going to dive too deeply into that, but we do have a lot to dive into with the game and everything. And joining me tonight are Ben, and Ellie is with us as well. Guys,
Ben's dog is here.
I'm sorry, who?
My dog.
Ben's dog is also there.
My lab is here, yes.
All right, now, is your dog going to be like Rudy Giuliani and pass gas on the microphone?
You know, it's possible. He might. You won't probably be able to hear it, but you'll hear me gagging if he does. It's quite pungent.
Make sure you hit the mute button if that starts gagging and stuff. Sure. Well, Ellie, I'm going to flip it over to you. We know that you're a dyed-in-the-wool Steelers fan, and you go through all the same emotions and roller coasters that we do. So how are you feeling after 24 hours after that game yesterday?
I'll never not be grateful for a win because I've seen tweets today where people have said, like, this is what they are achieving is incredible, even if they're achieving it by scraping by. So I'm not ungrateful for a win, but I certainly didn't feel like a victory, a regular victory day. It felt a little bit deflated, maybe. I think might be the right word.
Mm-hmm.
I part of that was because I'm sorry.
Bud.
I think, Bud. That's what I was going to say. Yeah, I think part of that is Bud.
Yeah, and we'll definitely get to that. Ben, what was your overall feeling after yesterday?
Well, yesterday I had to work all day, so I should explain this. And there was a lot of anxiety, and I just went completely dark. I would not answer texts or phone calls.
I've been there. I know.
People, social media, no, wasn't any of that. And then what I did was I got together with a handful of friends after work immediately, and we watched the game together.
Oh, so, and none of you, I mean, absolutely none of you had any idea of the outcome.
No.
That's incredible. In this day and age, it's incredible.
It was. And so, at that point, I'd had people all day because I went to work in Steelers gear.
Sure.
I'm supposed to wear a button-down shirt or a polo, so I wore a button-down Steelers shirt.
Very nice.
It's actually a baseball jersey, untucked. Kind of hoping they would say something, and I was going to be like, yeah, you know what? I think you should send me home to think about what I've done. They didn't. Unfortunately. So people all day long were like, oh, did they win? Oh, what's going on? Oh, do you want to know what happened? No, I don't. I do not want to know. Shut up. Well, I know you want to know the score. I'm sure you're going to watch it anyway, but you want to know. No, I don't want to know. Shut up. Leave me alone. So by the time I got to finally watch the game, I was so amped up that, I didn't think they played particularly well. No. Lots and lots of drops.
Oh, my God.
I counted, I think, 8. Somebody else told me there were 10. I need to go back and watch the game. I haven't done that yet. Consumed an awful lot of alcohol yesterday during that game. Was just happy to get away with the win after the offense played as poorly as it did. The offense in particular. The defense, there were 2 plays, really, that made the game, as far as I was concerned. TJ Watt had a huge tackle for loss that took the Ratbirds out of, and I'm going to call them the fucking Ratbirds for the rest of my life, took them out of field goal range.
It was a huge play.
And the last play in the first half was a perfectly thrown pass to a wide open tight end.
Yep.
And Minkah Fitzpatrick ran in there and knocked the ball out of his hands, and it was an incompletion. That should have been a touchdown.
Absolutely.
And those 2 plays right there, that's 10 points off the board. The Ravens would have won the game.
Yeah.
We would have lost had it not been for those two plays. And so the defense really came through yesterday. But yeah, I mean, it was kind of a letdown, especially given the fact that I knew anyway, when Bud smacked the ground and he had the non-contact injury, that it was probably his ACL. And, at the very least, it was going to be like, a small tear as opposed to a complete tear. But apparently it's a complete tear, and it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, they don't play well, especially offensively. We get away with a win, but it's a lackluster performance. And you lose Bud Dupree. Huge letdown at the end there. Big one.
Absolutely. And I think all of us have been around sport long enough to know that when you see a player go down in a situation where there's little to no contact, there's an immediate pissed off reaction, you just immediately think the worst. And I did. I was a little bit, I guess, optimistic for a moment because, they focused on Minka so much there because that's the play where he kind of had the ball in his hands and dropped the interception. And it would have been a great play. But and then as they went to the next snap, Bud wasn't there. And I'm thinking, okay, he got off the field. Maybe he just, tweaked a hammy, something like that. But man, when you saw him walking on the sidelines with a very noticeable limp, you could just tell. And
I knew when I saw the replay, man. I was like, he knows.
Yeah. And you made a comment today, I think on Twitter about, the Steelers continue to be one of the few teams that insist upon natural grass fields. And, sadly, we've lost two of our four linebackers at Heinz Field this year to ACL injuries. And they are what they are. I'm not going to get into the other stuff about that. But, Ellie, from your perspective, were you kind of thinking the same thing when that happened?
Yeah. I mean, I think you put it completely right. When you see a player on a minimal to no contact injury smacking the ground like that, you know that it's pretty bad. I did allow myself to have some hope because he walked off somewhat unassisted. I guess he was able to at least get into the locker room. But you can always hope the initial tests are wrong, but they're rarely, if ever, wrong. So
yeah, that's a good point.
We knew yesterday, and then today was just the confirmation. And it's devastating because he really has earned his place in the playoffs. And I wish he could be there so much. I really do.
It's one of the cruel twists of sport. That a guy like this, and believe me, on this show many times we've been very critical of him. As a first round draft pick, a guy that a lot was expected of, and it took time. It took time, and some would even argue that it really didn't click for him until T.J. Watt was on the other side, and we that's here nor there, not to get in, but man, the guy put in a lot of time and energy to really perfect his craft, and make himself a better football player. And that's what I kept thinking about as I was kind of watching that unfold. And, he was paid very handsomely this year on the franchise tag and an ACL
and was earning it.
And was earning it.
And was earning it.
Yeah. And now we turn the page, and I do also want to mention real quickly that Mike Tomlin did say today that Steven Nelson was to undergo an MRI. Now he played, he finished the game, but had some knee discomfort and so on, and so that's one we have to keep an eye on, especially on a short week. We turn right back around on Monday at 5:00, so. That would be certainly devastating as well to lose him for any length of time. So Ben, just what are you seeing offensively? I mean, this team was 1 for 4 in the red zone. I think they ended up 6 for 18 on third down, 0 for 2 on fourth down. What's happening? What's going on in your mind?
I understand what happened. I don't think it excuses anything.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, basically, the practice week got long and drawn out, and it takes you out of your routine.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yep.
And disruption of that routine it just screws up everything. And nothing was in sync yesterday when they played as a result. And, what they're going to have to do now, and everybody to a man has pretty much said it.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have to figure out how to make it work and get things back in that routine and get everything back in sync. I don't know of a better way to put it, but I mean, they were missing simple things yesterday. I thought the blocking was better yesterday. I'm not particularly impressed with Benny Snell as a runner, but I never really have been.
He had a few moments, but I understand what you're saying.
Week 1, I thought he had improved. He hasn't really shown me anything since then. I looking back on it, I think the Giants are just a really terrible run defense.
Wow.
And the Ravens are not, and a lot of their guys were out yesterday, and he just didn't do a heck of a lot. He did okay, I thought, in the passing game.
I thought he was really good. Yeah.
I didn't expect. So that's a positive. The wide receivers yesterday and Eric Ebron were a disappointment. Aside from Juju, who did all the dirty work, made every catch, did not drop a pass. That guy. I mean, I don't know how mathematically they can do it, but I hope they find a way to keep him. I really do.
I agree.
I don't know how much you can pay him, but maybe, they can figure something out where they can backload the contract and have some rolling guarantees that give him some money in 2022 and keep him around for a while. I don't know. Going to have to get creative there.
Definitely.
We'll see what happens. But I mean, I think they just were out of sorts, for lack of a better way of describing it. Yeah. And it was just the long, extended, we're going to play. Okay, we're not going to play. Okay, yes, but we're going to play now. Okay, but we're not going to play now. Okay, but yeah, we're definitely going to play this time. But no, we're not. We're not playing this time. And honestly, I'm sorry. The Ravens were playing games. They were trying to see what they could do and how long they could string this thing out.
I agree.
To either force the NFL to cancel the game entirely, to push it to the end of the season, either one of which would have created an additional slot for the playoffs. And you got a team in Baltimore that's right on the cusp of being pushed out of the playoff picture. And it's entirely self-involved. It's just, how can we get to the playoffs? If we push this game out of this slot this week and it doesn't get played at all, there's a very high chance there will be an 8th playoff team, and it gives us a better shot at getting in.
Oh, yeah.
That's what that was all about. The whole thing all week long. It was such a load of crap. First, they don't want to travel on Sunday because of COVID. Okay, well, the guy who tested positive on COVID on Sunday, was on injured reserve and hadn't been around any of the players for several weeks. Then they didn't want to play on Tuesday because of the snow. They didn't want to travel in the snow. All 1 inch of it.
I was going to say,
that must have been really, really dangerous to travel in. And then they didn't want to play on Tuesday because of not being able to practice. So they bumped it to Wednesday. It's like, how many different ways? Oh, look, these guys are coming off the COVID list. Screw you guys. And the whole thing, that's why I hate these fuckers. They complained for years about the tactics that Patriots would pull, where they would do things that were in the gray area and weren't really illegal because the league hadn't caught up to them yet. But, they were sort of frowned upon anyway, but, the Patriots would do it. They complain about that, but then they pull shit like this. And, I don't recall, I don't remember if you recall years ago, there was a game where Harbaugh coached his offensive linemen to do a bunch of cut blocking.
Yeah.
That's now illegal.
Yeah.
And his players literally said to the Steelers defenders, "We're sorry. They told us we have to do this game. We know it's not okay, but this is what they're paying us to do." And Harbaugh was criticized. Basically, was told what you did was unethical, and his response was 100% legal, 100% ethical. And he literally tried to injure our players. He was trying to injure our frontline guys. I've hated that motherfucker ever since. I mean, I swear to you, if I ever see him, I will punch him in the face. And this is probably a bad thing to admit on a podcast, but I will.
Yeah, there's a record now.
Yeah, I will.
Look,
I mean, the likelihood that I will ever run into him is very, very low. So,
I'll see what I can arrange.
I can't stand him.
No, I'm the same way. And you sense my frustration dealing with his asshole brother as the head coach of the University of Michigan. They're two peas in a pod. They're both whiners. I am so grateful for Mike Tomlin, because Mike Tomlin just refuses to go down those roads. And doesn't do that stuff. Who knows what he does and says in private? I don't care. At least publicly, he continues to be a true gentleman and do all the right things. And Ellie, what were you thinking, Ellie, when you were watching the end of the half unfold? Because the only thing I'll say before I flip it over to you is I was thinking karma, and I'm just sitting there going, all the crap that you pulled all week, and then it came back to bite you in those last 30 seconds. What were you thinking watching halftime, or right before halftime there?
I thought, I don't know. That was a strange moment. I've never actually seen that before. I don't think so anyway. I can't remember a time where I've ever seen someone get up very slowly like that.
Well, you've seen it. You've seen it. Trust me, you've seen it.
I would say, I know that the Ravens are upset about it. My response would be, well, you had poor clock management. You should have had a timeout on the cards. Your fault, not mine.
Amen, sister.
We'll move on from it. Not my fault. You shouldn't have used all three. What can I say?
Well, and you've been around soccer a lot, and one of the things that turns off not just some Americans but people all over the world with soccer sometimes is the gamesmanship of the players. Looking like they've gotten hit or taking a boot to the shin or knee, and so they're down writhing in pain as though they've been shot. And 2 seconds later they're back up and running. What I didn't understand was Harbaugh was just livid and everything. His players stood around for like 10 seconds. They just stood there, and the Steelers just were like, geez, nobody's grabbing me. I'm just going to lay here and kind of stretch out for a minute. And if somebody pulls me off the pile, so be it.
Well, I mean, Vince Williams, in his defense, was under everybody.
He was.
But if the Ravens players had run back to the line, wouldn't you guys have been like, okay, this is a little obvious?
No question in my mind. And then, of course, I'm 2 seconds later screaming at Jordan Dangerfield, who sees the tight end go behind him, and Minka making just a fabulous play to break that up. And Ben, as you said, that was 7 points there, and TJ had the spectacular tackle for loss that knocked him out of field goal range. And I mean, the NFL, if you're an NFL fan, I think by now the NFL games each week really do come down to a couple of plays. Even in blowouts, games often are turned on one or two plays, and and that was a case where a couple of plays made a huge difference. And Ellie, I know you got to run, but I do want to get just a little bit of your thoughts on Bud Dupree. We talked a little bit about when it happened. What kind of confidence do you have with Alex Highsmith? A rookie. What have you seen from him so far that gives you some confidence, or maybe not?
Oh, I absolutely do have confidence in Alex Highsmith. I think that he has shown some great skill, and he seems to really be able to dial in on what our defense is doing. He certainly doesn't stick out like a rookie. Not that rookies do, but do you know what I mean? I don't look at him and think, well, rookie mistake. He really blends well with the group. I don't expect Bud Dupree caliber performances from him. But if he can just not be the weak link, then I would consider that to be the best you can ask this late in the game, with so much to play for, and with him being a rookie and him stepping up in such a short. He only has a few days as well. This turnaround for him it's like you have no time to really. It's not like you have a full week or a bye week or something to really get to grips with what's happening. You're in on Monday, and there's no one else but you. So it's step up or get washed aside. So I do have faith in him, and I do believe that he'll be able to not step into Bud's shoes, but just into his position.
That's a really well said. Yeah, I agree with you. I think anybody expecting the type of output that Bud has provided is just not thinking straight. But you're right. It's about, don't be the guy that can't set the edge and gets beat on the outside. Don't be the guy that's constantly being blocked and isn't pressuring the QB once in a while. I agree with you. We're going to let you run. We know you got some other things going on. And as always, thank you so much for joining us. And
no problem.
We'll talk to you real soon, Ellie.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye. So Ben, I know you wanted to obviously comment a little bit on Highsmith and where they go here. Really they're going to have kind of a 3-man rotation, I would think, for Monday. Between TJ Highsmith and Ola. I know you wanted to comment on the scuttlebutt, if you will, of a certain former Steelers linebacker possibly coming back to the Steelers.
Well, I think there are two things. One, James recently posted having the Steelers doctors look at his knee because, he lives in Pittsburgh and still has access to those guys. And so there's speculation because of that. And then, the fans are just basically chiming in. Hey, what about James Harrison? Blah, blah, blah. He's only 3 years removed from football and couldn't do it real well when he played before. Maybe he's better now. Guys, a few things. One, James Harrison is not coming out of retirement. It's not happening. And even if he did, expecting him to be able to produce, even at the level that a rookie linebacker like Alex Highsmith can, when he's 42 years old and hasn't played since 2017, is ridiculous. Okay? It ain't happening. I don't know how else to put it more plainly. I realize the guy posts workouts all the time, and he's super strong.
Yes, he is.
It's not just about strength. It's athleticism in the NFL. Okay?
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've noticed that James, he's not in shape. It's not just about being in football shape. The guy's got to weigh about 3 bills right now.
Well, look, let me throw a major cog into this argument, because I have seen him on a commercial where he tackles a guy. That is more than enough to convince me that he's ready to go and he can step in right now. Sure. I hope you sense the sarcasm in my voice, audience.
I did.
Look, it's fun to talk about. I agree. I mean, so what are you going to do? You're gonna sign him to have him maybe for 8 plays a game. He's not going to play special teams anyway. You're going to roll with these 3. Jaron Elliott is, I think he's still on the COVID list. Is that correct?
No, he's off.
He's off. Okay, so. I mean, there's your 4th for at least right now, and
what's going to happen there is Elliott's going to be active, so that they have an additional linebacker, and he'll play special teams. I don't think he'll get on the field much. He might here and there. He might here and there, but it's mainly going to be Watt and Highsmith. What concerns me about losing Bud is not so much the edge. I think between Ola and Highsmith, those guys can do a pretty good job. Okay?
I agree.
on the edge.
Yep.
What concerns me is that Bud plays off the ball an awful lot in sub packages.
Mm-hmm.
And having that sideline to sideline presence is important. And you had it with Bush, and then we lost it because he went down to the same injury.
Mm-hmm.
So they replaced him with Bud, and sometimes with Watt. And it worked because basically they just flared Hayward out to the end and put him in a 3-point stance and let him, go after the quarterback that way.
Right.
He's also good in the run. He can set the edge and everything else. So, it works out. But you can't pull both Bud and TJ off the line and expect to have the same kind of results. So my question is going to be going into Monday, who is that linebacker going to be who can play in space? And I don't know right now. I don't know.
Well, and I'm trying to give a visual to the audience. When Devin Bush went down, what Keith Butler was doing was in some cases he was taking Bud Dupree, and instead of lining him up at his typical position there on the edge, he was actually off the ball, as you said, and would oftentimes be positioned not quite where Devin Bush would be normally, but he was definitely off the ball and at the second level. So what
he's playing a linebacker, true
he's
linebacker,
playing more of
as
an
opposed to edge.
Exactly. And so therefore, with him gone now, Butler is going to have to figure out, what do I do with that package? How do I move forward with it and replace that type of thing? Because as you said, it wasn't just about having Bud there. It was about Bud's ability to athletically go sideline to sideline, because he can.
Yep.
Now what do you do? Now they when they put him on IR today, they activated Brooks, I believe, the rookie safety that some see as kind of that small hybrid linebacker type. But I don't know. I'm curious to see where they go with that when we play on Monday.
I am too, and I have some ideas, but and all they did was they put Brooks on the active inactive.
Okay.
So he's going to be active again this week, but on Tuesday he goes back to the practice squad. So he hasn't really been promoted.
Okay.
He's just going to be on the active inactive again, and he was on yesterday as well. So, we'll see. I think it's probably going to be a combination of players. We're going to see Edmonds in there to a certain degree. We're going to see Marcus Allen. I think we'll see Avery Williamson, although I got to tell you guys, Avery Williamson is not nearly as fast as Bud Dupree, and he's pretty average in coverage. People keep talking about him like he's this really mobile linebacker. No, he's not.
No.
If he was that talented, he'd be beating out Robert Spillane for snaps right now, and he's not.
He's more of a Vince Williams type of linebacker than a Devin Bush type of linebacker.
He's better in coverage than Vince or Spillane, and he's got better change of direction speed than either one of those two players, and that's what makes him a more competent linebacker in those situations. But I'm not going to tell you that he's fast. He's not.
No, I don't think so.
So we'll see. I think we're going to see an awful lot of 3 safety sets.
That's exactly where I was going, because if Edmonds perhaps moves down a little bit, does that bring in another safety? So I don't know. I think it's going to be really, really curious to see what they do against a Washington offense that is decent. I'm not going to call him good. I'm not going to call him great. Alex Smith is we've known for a long time. He likes to check the ball down. And they've
not as
got
bad as Mason or anything, but yeah.
No. I like the Gibson kid. They got a running back. They got McLaurin at receiver. They've got some ability. And they're 4-7. In any other year, I'd say, well, they're playing for nothing. But my God, they're in the worst division in football. Maybe in the history of football.
They are playing for their division lead. They need to win bad.
4-7. So yeah, that part of it is going to be fascinating to me. Have we gotten a definitive answer on Marquise Pouncey as far as did he test positive or was it close contact?
He tested positive on Wednesday, but it was the rapid response test. So people speculated that maybe today the antigen test that they take where they don't get the results till the next day,
right?
That maybe he would come back negative today. Well, I haven't heard anything, so I'm assuming that he came back positive again today with that test. So he's still on the list.
Yeah, and would make him unavailable on Monday. Because
if he tested positive, he's unavailable for 10 days.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even think about that part. Jeez, yeah. Oh, God, that takes him right up to Buffalo.
Yeah.
Man. Just a reminder, you're listening to the Steel City Blitz Steelers podcast presented by Deck Roofing Incorporated, serving Broward and the southern Palm Beach counties. Whether it's commercial, residential, multifamily, or condos, contact Deck Roofing today by visiting deckroofing.com.
Quick question for you.
Yeah.
What did you think of Hassenauer?
Well, I'm a little bit like you. I watched the game live. I have not had a chance to watch the all 22.
What was your impression?
My overall impression was that I wasn't as worried about him by the end of the game as I was at the beginning of the game.
I agree.
I think he handled himself well. He didn't have bad snaps. There were a couple that Ben had to reach for. But I'll tell you what, for a young guy that kind of got tossed in there a little quicker than he probably would have liked, I thought he handled himself pretty well.
I thought he did okay. I didn't. Yeah. I was concerned that it was going to be terrible. I didn't see that at all. The other thing that jumps out to me as far as a personnel move goes is that the Steelers signed a practice squad kicker this week.
Did they sign Matthew
Wright? And I was a little surprised. And then Boz goes out and misses an extra point.
Are you getting at maybe he's hurt again?
I don't know. I'm kind of speculating that might be the case.
Yeah, because Matthew Wright, if you go back in time a little bit, he's the young man that was brought in during the summer to compete against Boz after Boz had that just atrocious year 2 years ago.
Summer of 2019.
Right. And we know Boz was dealing with some injury stuff there, and he obviously had been coming off the Pro Bowl year and got the big raise, and oh boy, it didn't go well. And thankfully, last year was much better. But so Matthew Wright has some familiarity with the Steelers and vice versa. And it's pretty unusual just to go out and say, "Hey, I'm going to sign a kicker and stick him on the practice squad." You typically have a good reason for doing that.
Yeah,
because those positions are so precious for linemen and receivers and DBs and stuff. So. It's something to keep an eye on, and I'm glad you brought that up. I noticed it today and had totally forgotten about it. So Hassenauer, I think with a full, well, not quite a full, but at least some time now to prepare might be even better coming up this week. And he offers maybe some different things. We know what Marquise's strengths and weaknesses are, and Hassenauer has definitely bulked up. He doesn't look like the same guy I saw last year. He looks a little thicker to me, and he's got the Alabama pedigree. I mean, the kid's played in big games before, so I'm not going to worry about him too much. He's just got to be able to hold his own in there. What did you think? I know you mentioned the drops and stuff, and do you really think it was a product of just the constant yo-yo effect that the Steelers were going through over the last 6 days? Is that a big part of it?
I think that's what it was, but it doesn't excuse it.
Mm-hmm.
These guys are professionals. They need to be prepared no matter what happens, no matter what gets thrown at them. They need to be ready to play. And they were not. I'm sorry. And to his credit, Deontay Johnson immediately apologized and was like, I'm human. I made mistakes. Don't worry. I'll be back very soon. And he made some nice plays too. And he made one catch. He made one catch where Ben was being blitzed and threw the ball early, and he turned around and he maybe had a 1/10 of a second before that ball was in his face when he turned around, and he still caught it. So it's like, okay, you had some drops on some easy passes, and then you had that one that was like, if you had dropped it, I would have been like, well, that, that's cool. That's not a big. He caught it.
No, he did. It was a great catch. I mean, one of those. It reminded me of being at Latrobe in training camp as the sun was going down over the hills of Latrobe, and you would see Hines Ward out there on the jugs machine, and he'd be standing with his back to the machine, and he'd snap around, and the ball would literally be right there. And AB used to do that too, but I didn't want to mention him. And that's what it looked like, because he turned around, the ball was coming, he got his hands up real quick, kind of over his head, and it's you bring up a good point. He made some really bad plays in terms of drops, but he also made some really important catches and runs.
Yep.
And I feel for the kid, because everything's there. Just catch the damn ball more often, and sky's the limit.
I'm a little disappointed in him from the standpoint, and I've mentioned this several times before, but from the standpoint that I thought that he was going to play himself into the number one receiver role this season, and he hasn't. I just don't think that he and Ben are on the same page.
Is some of that, I don't want to make excuses, is some of that because Ben was out all last year and they didn't have the normal training camp this year? I mean, can any be attributed to that?
For sure. And those are explanations, but they don't excuse anything.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah. I want to ask you this question, and I know what you're going to answer, but I think it's important for fans to listen to this. The Steelers are 11-0. They've done everything they're supposed to do. They've won all 11 games. And there's a segment of fans that believe that because of that the team is not allowed to be criticized. Quit bitching. They've won all their games, blah, blah, blah. Why is it okay? Why is it even perhaps justified to be able to criticize a team even though they've won every game?
Well, when the head coach and the players after the game say, we didn't play well, it's okay to agree with them.
Yes, it is. It very much is.
For starters. And second, when there are opportunities for them to improve, acknowledging those opportunities, which is something they also do, is not a bad thing either. It's not like we're saying they suck, they're overrated. No. We're saying, they didn't really play up to their potential tonight, and I'd like to see them do that. Yeah. And I am not going to be that guy who says they didn't deserve to win. They deserved to win. They scored more points than a team that was decimated by COVID, however you want to put it, injuries, COVID. They beat a subpar squad yesterday, and they did not do it in scintillating fashion. When they were up by 12 points in the third quarter, I looked at my friends and I was like, yep, we're winning. It's over. We're up by 12 in Pittsburgh versus the Rats. We're winning this game. And they were like, dude, you're counting your chickens. Shut up. And then they scored.
So it's your fault.
They scored that touchdown, right? So now they're within 5, and my friends are all like, you're a fucking jinx, dude. You should not have said anything. And I shouldn't have counted on that. But basically, I kind of thought at that point, it's like, okay, they've been a second half team a lot of the year. They're going to pull away now. They're going to pull away.
Yeah, I thought so too.
They're going to justify my faith in them right now, and they're going to win by 21 points. And they didn't.
Well, I just think in your point about the comments of the coaches and the players is exactly why it's okay for fans and people like us to be able to be critical. Mike Tomlin called it unacceptable. A JV
Mike
performance.
Tomlin was pissed.
I mean,
Tomlin was angry.
Yes.
When have you ever seen Mike Tomlin that angry after a win?
I don't know. I mean, that was like unleash hell type of intensity.
He was pissed.
And I was sitting there after the game, and my daughter said, "Did you hear Ben?" And I said, I said, what? And we had him on the TV. He was talking to Michelle Tafoya, and she looked at me and she said, he said, we didn't deserve to win. And I said, well, that tells you how much they know they didn't play well. And
that was kind of his point about the whole team. And he was like,
yes.
None of us, this doesn't feel like a win.
Right.
And he says, I think that speaks to the character of this team. And I was like, all right, that's good. That's a good place to start. I appreciate that.
I agree. I did, and I thought you might be going here. What was Terrell Edmonds thinking up by 12 and trying to make a play on the ball there? What was happening?
I don't know.
I mean, it reminded me of when you're playing Madden on your video game system and you accidentally hit the dive button instead of the tackle button, and you just go flying past the guy as he catches the ball and runs for a touchdown. I mean, it was so bizarre.
I don't know. And that, he's had some bonehead plays like that before early in his career, and obviously been widely criticized for them. I think that just has to do, again, with that whole, the team not being in sync. I'm going to give him a pass for that one play.
Okay.
Because he's been so consistent. He's been
so much better all year
long.
So
much better since week 2. And, that was kind of an aberration. And
I hope so.
Just like all the friggin' drops by the offense yesterday, that to me is an aberration. Okay, it's so far out of the norm that you have to look at it and go, okay, yeah, we can throw that out. Now, if it happens again on Monday, we got problems.
We got big problems.
But as long as it doesn't, it's okay. It's just you can't let stuff like that slide. That's all. You got to be accountable to it and go,
right.
All right, we got to own that. We can't let that happen again. Snuff that out right now.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I'm guessing that's already been called to his attention numerous times in the last 24 hours. But
probably a really fun film session.
Oh boy, right
in front of the whole team. Now tell me, what were you thinking here?
That's usually about the time when the other 53 players start to slink down in their seats a little bit, so because
they're laughing and they don't want to get caught.
Oh, he's gonna get killed on this one. Oh God, that just about killed me when I saw that play. But thankfully we took care of business and got the W. The Steelers can clinch a playoff spot with a win. They can also clinch one with a loss by, I believe, Las Vegas or Miami. But let's be honest, we'd like to win for numerous reasons. The funny thing is, if this team is going to lose a game on the way to the postseason, this is actually the one to lose.
Yeah, but we said that like 4 times now.
Well, no, it is. It's the 4th time because it's the last.
They just
last
keep winning.
NFC team. It's the last NFC team we play.
Yep.
So it would be it would be tossing out the tiebreaker with Kansas City if they stay with one win, because their loss was to an AFC opponent. And I don't think that's going to happen, but I'll just use that segue as an opportunity to take it over to you and give me your final thoughts and a prediction for Monday, the 5:15 kick on Monday Night Football.
No, it's 5:00, isn't it?
Is it 5? I thought it was 5:15. Maybe it's just 5. Okay.
I think it's 5.
I'll be tuned in at 5 either way. It won't matter.
Oh, well, true. Good point.
Yeah.
That's not a real strong team, obviously.
No. Mm-hmm.
Kind of is what it is. I don't know. I think they've got a little bit to play for, though.
I do too.
More so than most teams the Steelers have played from the NFC East this year. What are they favored by anyway? Do you know?
I did not see the number today. I'm gonna guess it's probably somewhere in that 8 to 10 range, though. So, I would think
any numbers.
There will not be fans again at Heinz Field. It'll be empty once again.
Well, no, there'll be somebody's mom will be up there shrieking in the stand. Do you hear that?
I did. And
what the hell?
Did we ever get confirmation on who in the hell that was?
No.
Oh my Lord!
She was screaming. I was like, "Jesus, lady! Wow!"
Like, hey, NBC, can't you do something with the sound here? I mean, come on. Filter
it
that
kind of
radio.
reminded me of. Do you remember the 05 AFC Championship game in Denver?
Yes.
And that woman who was sitting, she must have been sitting close to a boom mic someplace and kept screaming over and over and over again. And you can hear her throughout the whole recording of the game.
Yes, you can hear it on
the
season highlights tape or something, the Super Bowl highlights tape. You can hear it.
I've got that game on DVD.
Okay. No, I'm sure you do.
Dating myself.
Yeah.
So the Steelers are favored by 8.5.
Okay.
I see them covering on this game because every time I say they're not going to cover, they cover, and they had a pretty lackluster performance versus the Ratbirds. And Washington is not great. Oh boy. What's the Steelers done?
The interesting thing here, Washington has the number 1 pass defense in the league.
Do they?
Yes.
Neat.
Yeah.
That means they're terrible versus the run.
Well, it's going to be interesting because we don't run well, and I think it's going to be fascinating to see how that unravels. So what's your prediction?
Don't really have one because, as you can
that's
tell,
fine.
I'm trying to stall because I wasn't prepared.
Okay.
So let's see. Total defense. Washington is the Washington football team.
That's right.
Is seriously? They're number 4
overall. I didn't realize they were that high.
Neither did I. Wait a minute. Let me do this again.
They're
number 4.
Researching. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, while you're researching, and you alluded to this, the Steelers have to be pissed off at their performance. I know they won. We know they won. I just think they're going to want to play better. I think they'll be more focused. There's no need to worry about this game being rescheduled right now. Knock on wood. I think we win this like 27-14, 27-13, something like that. Alex Smith is a wonderful story. Don't get me wrong. It is. I'm glad the guy has been able to come back and play football. But I don't know if you've noticed, he's not as mobile back there as he once was.
No.
And I think that's going to be a problem even without Bud Dupree. I think they're going to put some pressure on him. And, Gibson kid worries me a little bit. Good, fast runner, but I think we'll get this done on Monday.
Okay. What's your score?
I'm going to go with like 27-13. I think it's going to be somewhere in that ballpark.
Okay. Well, first off, you're wrong. Washington is not the number 1 passing defense in the league. They're number not. 2.
Oh, well,
the number 1 passing defense in the league is the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Okay. All right. I stand corrected.
Yeah. They are number 2. When you look at passer rating, they're actually, passer rating surrendered versus opposing quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
They're actually like 8th or 9th. But in terms of just yards per game, they are number 2.
Okay.
The Steelers are number 1 in that passer rating.
By a lot.
By 4 points.
Oh, I thought it was bigger than that.
71.5, which is good.
Yeah.
Very good. And Washington's like 8 or 9. So there's that. As a rushing defense, they're decent.
Mm-hmm.
They're 13th in terms of average per carry at 4.3 yards. But the Steelers don't run well.
No. They should get James Conner back, though, right?
Haven't for the last several weeks. They should get James Conner back.
Yeah.
We hope.
Yeah.
We will see. I really, really hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he tested positive early in the process. So, 10 days, and he won't need much time to prepare, provided that, he can test negative and come back healthy. He should be fine. So there's that. But I think what they need to do is let Ben. Did he just seem super frustrated to you, or was it just me?
No, I think he was. And I think he was frustrated with his receivers. I think he was frustrated with himself. I think there were 2 or 3 balls that he threw that if he puts them a little more in front, then the play ends up way differently. Look, he works on that a ton. And I know there are moments when quarterbacks are taught to throw to the back hip of a receiver so that they can get that kind of snap around to pick up momentum towards the sideline. But the case that I'm talking about, the couple of times, these were instances where you had to get the ball out front because the receiver was heavily covered. And if you get the ball out front, he's going to catch it. And a couple of times they were caught, but they were immediately tackled or they were just incomplete. So yeah, I sensed quite a bit of frustration. And I am really getting to the point now where I'm tired of talking about running the ball. I think just let Ben do what he's going to do, and sink or swim with it. I don't like it, but I think that's where we're at. This offensive line just does not run block as well as we need, and that's kind of where. I mean, what did he throw? 51 times last night, I think.
Yeah, too many.
Yeah, it's too many. But I don't know what else to do if we're not getting more than 3.5 yards of crack.
Sure, and let's be frank. A lot of those were very short passes that were long handoffs.
Long handoffs, definitely.
Like we talk about all the time, So I agree with you. We're to the point where we kind of need to let Ben be Ben and do his thing at the line of scrimmage.
Mm-hmm.
It is kind of like, okay, well, here's what I want to do. I'm not a huge fan of the RPO.
Oh, God, no.
But, there are some instances where it works really well and some others where it just doesn't.
He just doesn't look comfortable to me doing it. And
they've had some big plays on the RPO.
They have.
In particular to Claypool this year.
Yep.
So, maybe that's something you do, or maybe you give Ben an opportunity to take a look at what the defense is showing him and audible to something that he thinks will work.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of go from there. I don't know. But, yeah, that's kind of the direction I would go with it. Yeah. I agree with you. I think the Steelers will cover this week. I'm going to say 28-13 Pittsburgh.
Okay. That's a solid cover right there.
It is.
It is indeed. Hey, we're going to go ahead and get on out of here now. And it's been a weird couple of weeks, Steeler Nation. And thanks for riding through it. And hopefully we don't have to deal with this anymore. But unfortunately, it is what it is. And, you just wonder what each day and each week brings as far as the COVID stuff in each of these teams. So it would be nice to see other teams have to be yo-yoed around as much as we have been, but hey, we'll get through it. We always do. So for Ben and for Ellie, who joined us earlier in the show, this is Steel Dad, and I'm signing off on the Steel City Blitz Steelers podcast presented by Deck Roofing Incorporated of South Florida. And hey, go Steelers.
Ravens suck.